and welcome to the second episode of Talking Shop, the BCO's new series of discussions with BCO members and the NextGen. And I'm delighted today to welcome in this conversation, Yohance Harper, an associate partner at Quadrant Estates. I'm Ken Giannini, one of the directors of MCM. Yohance is an associate partner at Quadrant Estates, which is a private equity operating partner, and he specializes in asset management and development. His main project is a 200,000 square foot office and rural mayor master plan at 9 Elms. And previously, Yohance studied and worked in architecture, specializing in luxury residential design before joining CBRE in 2014. There, he worked in investment valuations for a year before joining CBRE's Capital Advisors. His role as a non-discretionary development specialist focused on structuring and executing real estate strategies to achieve financial and socio-economic objectives. In this role, he worked to deliver over 5,000 residential units, 500 million pounds of commercial space. Key clients included the Crown Estate, Norges Bank, the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea. And outside of his professional role, Yohance is an honorary lecturer at UCL's Bartlett School of Planning. He's a visiting research fellow in the economics department of Goldsmiths University. He's an associate tutor at University College of Estate Management and vice chair of the Urban Land Institute Committee. And not surprisingly, after hearing all of that, in 2020, he was recognized by the British Council for Offices as the Rising Star of the Year, alongside multiple awards for the role from the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors and the British Property Federation. Wow. A great CV, Yohance, and I'm delighted to have you here today.
Thanks,
to have a conversation.
I'm loving being here. And Ken, I mean, to be fair, I'm inspired by the work that you're doing. So I'm super excited just to talk to you and hear about what you think as well.
Thank you very much. Yeah, well, we're going to have a good chat today. I think what we're going to do is maybe just try to talk about a few things. I think a few themes. One around inspiration. Another around some of the work that you're doing. I'd love to hear some of the projects you're involved in and the work that you're doing. And we've got to touch on the future of offices. You know, everybody in the world needs to talk about that. We're part of the BCO series here, so we need to be talking about the future of offices, and also about mentoring. So mentoring, I think we'll come on to that, but part of this is about inspiring other people, and I think mentoring is going to be a big theme for us to talk about. And we'll finish off talking a little bit about purpose, and I think we'll use that as a kind of a structure for the conversation, if we may.
Yeah, that's good.
So I thought maybe, inspiration for me, I think it strikes me that is a really big thing in your life, because you've gone from being an architect or trained as an architect and working as an architect, you changed careers, you decided to move into the world of investment and development. And I just, very curious kind of what inspired you to want to kind of make sort of those kind of moves, really.
Yeah, so I have always worked somewhere along. I was going to be an architect since I was the age of 8. So my dad's a town planner. I was going around sites from a child, and I always knew that I loved buildings, and I liked taking things apart. So I was either going to be an engineer or an architect, and then I decided architecture is the one, go towards that. Yeah. And then when I started working in architecture, I realized that I really enjoyed understanding the wider things that drove the building. So not just the physical fabric of the building, but also the financial constraints around it, the planning considerations, the political implications, and everything that goes with delivering a building. And I also wanted to be the one who kind of drove the decision-making process and taking the risk in terms of, well, I think this should be an office, or I think it should be a hotel, and doing all the financials and the implications around that, and then delivering that space. So yeah, that kind of is what drove moving from architecture to the investment and finance side.
And were there any individual moments in life that kind of made that happen, or were there any people, or?
There's one person in one experience. So the person was my part one tutor, not tutor, but the person who watches you whilst you're doing your part one experience. So you do architecture, you do your 3-year bachelor's, and you do a year out. And so I was doing my year out, and he could see that I was clearly very keen. He's like, Yohance, I think you actually prefer a wider experience than just architecture. I think what he was trying to tell me is that you're clever and you're not dumb, but you're going to be a very mediocre architect. So you should look at something better to do. And so I followed that guidance because I knew I took him at his word. And I applied for the CBRE internship the night before it closed. Before that day, I did not know who CBRE were. If you asked me what a surveyor was, I thought it was a guy who came to your house to fix the gas or to
sure.
to measure some sites. So for my sins, I got the internship, and that's almost a second experience. Well, that is a second experience. That CBRE internship, I sat in Capital Advisors. I sat next to an ex-fund manager who was the head of the team, Tony Martin, a development manager, a accountant who worked in debt and equity, and a surveyor. And those three guys blew my mind. I did not know that you can do all those weird and wonderful things with real estate, and the things that we were getting to do, from financial returns to socioeconomic returns. There's so many interesting things that were connected to buildings that I knew I wanted to be in that space, and that was all I needed. I converted from UCL, and the rest is history.
Fabulous. And I think we had a discussion the other day, didn't we, about kind of my experience and that sort of, the thing that inspired me in my life was probably when I joined Fitch at a young age. When I came to this country from America, I was a young whippersnapper architect. Thought I could design it and do anything. And then the first proper job I had in the UK was with a company called Fitch, and they were a very, very large, it's still around today, very large retail design practice. Yeah. And it was the first, I sat in, I think I was the first architect trained person they had ever employed. But this was a business of incredibly creative and inspiring people. They had interior designers, they had product designers, they had strategists, they had statisticians, they had other sort of technical designers. They had people involved in all, psychology, because they were designing retail experiences and retail products, and they did everything from understanding the market to understanding how people behaved and understanding, the color theory and everything you can imagine. And so it was a world of bringing together lots of disciplines into one office and just being incredibly inspired by everybody sitting around you and working with you. And for me, it kind of opened my eyes to the world of, you realize you can't do it all yourself. Working with other great, talented people is actually the way to be better yourself. And, and it's up to the, really important, I think, for people to recognize your colleagues and your friends and people that you work with are great sources of, developing your own career.
And I'm curious, Kim, with that experience, your design morals when you went in would obviously have changed throughout that process as you saw other people's work. And I was wondering how easy was it for you to kind of take on board the widest spectrum of work? Because I found as you come in and the commercial points come in, you go, oh, actually, I can't put a massive lobby like that because it might actually impact my gross to net. Whereas from the architecture side, that's beautiful, and that might make the space better. How did you work or get to that compromise, or if it is a compromise?
Well, it's not a compromise. I mean, I think you have to start big and then get narrow. I think the worst thing a designer can do is just all of a sudden be blinking, going, no, we've got to start there because that's got to be the right answer, and other constraints are going to stop me from doing anything beyond that. I think you've got to go for the big idea first, and then if the big idea has certain constraints or certain things that actually narrow it down, whether it's financial or timing or the client's desires and wishes, you manipulate things and you get them to the right answer at the end. But I think we shouldn't be afraid of developing and pushing big ideas.
Agreed.
I think that's we owe it to everyone, the community. We owe it to our clients. We owe it to ourselves to try to push and come up with the ideas. No point employing an architect and just to draw a drawing that you've thought of yourself if you're the client. You want architects and designers and creative people to come up with ideas you've not thought of.
Yeah. And to come together to create something great that's greater than some of the parts.
Yeah. Great. So tell us a bit about some of the work you're doing then. I'm fascinated with 30 South Colony, great project, also the current project at 9 Elms. Tell us a bit about those.
Yeah, so 30 South Colony is about 440,000 square feet of heavy refurb, extensive refurb, and then extended up office space in Canary Wharf. And 9 Elms is 200 plus square feet of office ground up in the Royal Mail Master Plan across from the Battersea Power Station and right next to the new Covent Market. Yeah. And I guess the similarity between both of them is they're both in areas that are relatively either unconventional for offices, being Plot A, or areas that are looking to redefine themselves in Canary Wharf. I remember as a student going to Canary Wharf thinking that it's a sterile space at the time, and it had a perception of that. in the sense that it was very much it came as one. And now YY London, which is the 30 South Colonnade project, that will change the game in terms of how it feels. And great architecture should make you feel something. And I feel like the feeling and the vibe of both projects are really aiming to make you come to the office and feel something, whether that's inspired, whether that's collaborative, whether that's relaxed. It all kind of, we're making it, it's a destination. We all know that we can work from home now. Not getting into the future of office, because I don't want to meld into that conversation. But like we have extensive planting in all of them. There's terraces on all the floors, roof terrace as well. There's various places that you can go to work. And in line with the tenant fit out, you have a very sustainable building that's also a great space to feel and work. And I just think they're really excited. I can't wait to go to see them when they're finished. And frankly, I want to spend a lot of time in them when they're done. Yeah,
I'd love the 30 Colonnade is a great example of repurposing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a huge uptick in highly innovative, creative repurposing of existing buildings. And I think it's probably going to be one of the major movements, of course, over the next 10 years, I think, because we do have a huge amount of stock, like all of Canary Wharf, or a vast amount of Canary Wharf and other parts of London and other regions, cities, that, buildings, from a sustainability point of view, and from a just giving something back to the community point of view. I think repurposing is going to be really massive, and I think that's a very good example of that.
It is. I mean, there's so much energy that goes into that building, and so being able to use the core and the structure of it and repurpose it in a way that it actually still provides for the future it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And kudos to the team for being able to do it, because it's a technical marvel. I look around and think that's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, we've at MTIM, we've had one as well, just recently completed, the headquarters of Anglo American De Beers in Charterhouse Street, which was completely strip it back to the concrete frame, reclad, extend, move things around and move the cores around, and just effectively it looks now like a brand new building, but it has the embedded energy that was saved through the frame and everything else has been an incredible sustainability story, I think, and I think we'll see a lot more of that. More of that in our industry, and good for it. I think it's a good thing. Do you think, because both of your projects were probably initiated pre-pandemic, did anything change during the course of the design process or construction process, because of, you see the way people are using buildings and the purpose of the building, or the focus of the change during the course of the project at all?
Yeah, so I'll focus on maybe on plot A for that one, because I was in that process when it happened.
Yeah.
So people are going to occupy their buildings in a different way now, and I think buildings need to be more of a plot. Well, they always were going towards that, but it catalyzed that process in the sense that it needs to be a platform to be able to work in various ways and work flexibly. And so there's the physical things that we changed. So we added opening windows to all the floors. We made sure that all the ventilation and mechanics are separated per floor. So if there's anything on one floor, nothing gets spread to another. You can walk from the door to your desk to the bathroom without touching a surface. So things like that just helps people feel more comfortable when they're in the space.
Right.
But then in terms of giving people ownership of the building, normally your reception is a vast open space where it's kind of proclaiming the power and the magnificence of the building. And we gave that over to the occupiers in the sense that it's a massive lounge. And so you can come and feel comfortable. You can work downstairs. You can blend into the coffee area or whatever the amenity is going to be, and just feel like you as an occupier own that space and can take it up through the building. So we really try to push that vibrancy through. And we're going to work with the future occupiers to do the same on all the floors.
Great. Yeah, really interesting. Really interesting. I think it kind of leads us into looking at the buildings. It's not just the physical environment, isn't it? It's the kind of it's almost the services and the and how you manage the space, and how the amenities, like you say, that you offer to the tenants is really just as important as the quality of the look and the feel of the building.
Yeah, I mean, so that's also part of the design. That was there anyway, but it's helped because it's allowed me to go carte blanche and just go wild on it. I think buildings should be platforms for partnerships. And if you think about, I'm never going to be the best coffee shop or the best laundry provider or dry cleaner, but those guys are out there. We can find them, and there's a mutual benefit to partner with them to say, actually, here's our building. We have 300 cyclists potentially coming in every day. They're going to need clean clothes. Do you want to do a laundry service? We'll build you in the space. Our occupier gets a great service. The service provider gets a great client base. Everybody wins. And so it's just being able to make sure the building's flexible enough to allow the various things. If you want to have parcels delivered to the office, that's great. And also you can have it sent back through the post. That all that kind of ease of occupying a space. We just want to think about that and bring the best people in to do it. Yeah,
perfect. I don't know if you read the paper that I produced or we produced in MCM. That one of them that was about what's the purpose of the office, and one of the elements that we described as potentially well, actually this was related to what's the purpose of the city. How do you get people coming back into the city, using the city? And related to workspace, we wrote a piece that actually the theme was members, not tenants. If you think about it, if you treat your as a developer or a fund, if you treat the people that occupy your buildings and your portfolio as members rather than tenants, they're all members of a private club, effectively. They're your private club. And because you have the buying power of hundreds or thousands of people, you can do what you've just described, and that's absolutely perfect. You can negotiate great deals with coffee suppliers or dry cleaners or those things. But I think there's also lifestyle products that potentially I think landlords and developers can be doing. You can probably negotiate great terms with Netflix and Uber Eats and other sort of things that are more about people's lifestyles when they're away from the building. So if you help support their lifestyle when they're not even in your building, I think that would be an incredible sort of win-win. And I could see that being something that landlords, it's not just on a building by building basis, but it's across your entire portfolio. You took all the buildings that Quadrant Estates own and all the occupiers in all your buildings. I guess the numbers are probably in the tens of thousands of people that occupy your buildings. If they were all part of the Quadrant Estates club and they could have access to these kind of amenities that support their lifestyle as much as their work, I think you'd be into a real win-win. So there's a free bit of consultancy advice, and good luck. And
Sounds good.
Didn't even have to pay for that, Yohance. But anyway,
I'll let you know how it goes. We're on the journey. We're gonna go hard at it.
Anyway, so it kind of brings us on to looking at future of offices and purpose and those sort of things. It's been debated and talked about almost too much, I think, in some circles. But how are you feeling about things going forward?
I think everybody can look at their own experience and answer that question themselves, frankly. I think 5 days at home is a bit much. And I think that after a while, you do want to interact with your colleagues. The random conversations that you have in the lift, this is the random conversations you overhear that weren't even intended for you. It's learning, it's interacting. I think equally for the younger generation, you need that connectivity to the seniors to learn from them, because that's what the office is for. It's a platform for interacting with your colleagues, for innovation, and that all kind of comes from being together. Zoom is great. It helps things. So like I used to have to go to Birmingham once a month for an hour-long meeting. That wouldn't happen today because you just have Zoom, and that's socially acceptable, and that's great, and it helps that. But can it help you ask a 5-minute question when you're just there going, I'm really struggling with this thing. I just need to tap on a partner's shoulder to ask a question. If I have to schedule a Zoom call in for that and get it in the diary, it makes it less natural. It makes the questions build up a bit more, and things don't flow as well. So do I think there's a future for the office? I think I'll let everybody else answer their own question. For me, there is. I'm here now, and just in the terms of wider lifestyle as well, in terms of being able to go out in the evenings. If you come and live in a big city, especially, you're doing it because you want to enjoy the benefits of that city. And so I can go to dinner and I have the widest array of the best in class. And that's why I love London. Yeah. And so it's so much easier for me to do it when I'm just here.
Yeah. No, completely. And I think you used the expression earlier that the office is a destination.
Yeah.
And I've also said that in some of the things that I've written recently, that the office is now a destination. It's not a routine.
Mm.
You need a reason to go to the office. And the pull, and I think landlords and developers and funds are now creating environments that actually give you the reason to be there. But the city is also the reason to go into the. I mean, as you just said, going into cities is a marvelous experience, and I think people want to have those kind of experiences. And I think I think there's a bright future for offices. We need them, and we need them. But I think they will be, and they are going to be different. They're used in different ways, and they will be different. And I think the quality levels are going to keep going up and up and up. I think we'll find that, if buildings and environments that are not of high enough quality, I think will suffer. So I think we're going to probably see, individual lettable spaces might be slightly smaller for some companies who may decide they don't need quite as much space for their headquarters. However, the buildings will be full. There'll just be more occupiers in the same building taking smaller spaces. But I think the quality level certainly is going to be one of the key drivers. I think people want to be in places that are, that feel good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a massively exciting place to be. And I know it might come across as biased, but it's in the context of I joined Quadrant to build speculative offices at the start of the pandemic when everything was kind of shutting down. So I have every faith that it's going to go from strength to strength.
I think there's also going to be a big push in the regions, though. And I think this is kind of goes back to one of the other kind of themes that I've got around what I call gig companies. And I think the emergence of gig companies will and is already starting to happen, where organizations realize that their recruitment policies in the past, pre-pandemic, were always you employ your employees because they live within commuting distance to your office. Well, that's no longer the case anymore. You don't have to do that anymore. And I think we're going to see people being employed to work for companies and organizations that can live virtually anywhere. I mean, it is true. The world almost becomes your catchment area in theory. But also, I think people moving to areas of the country and regions of the country that are less expensive, particularly if they have a lifestyle or a family or age, they may want to move to different parts. So I think some of the regional cities within the UK are going to see a big uptick, I think, in people wanting to live and work in different parts of the country.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to vary based on profession, though, because our lawyers, they know our buildings that we're building. So they've been there, they've been around site, so they've seen it, they understand London. So could I hire a law firm in Karachi to do it with the same comfort? Probably not. And obviously then you also have the qualifications as well that need to be adhered to. But then, if you're doing graphic design and you're doing a picture of a bird or a building or whatnot, I fully agree. I think it's gonna be a wide spectrum of how it's applied and companies and how they apply it. And I think it's gonna be curious to see how it all pans out.
Yeah. And the other big theme, I think, with the future is definitely around ESG or sustainability and social purpose and all of those kind of elements coming together. And I think the whole world is kind of moving to really realizing this isn't just a marketing spiel, and it's not just something you put in your annual report to say that we're responsible. I think people genuinely and organizations are genuinely realizing it makes a big difference in terms of recruiting people. It makes a difference in standing for something that has a purpose, is meaningful, and people want to work for organizations like that. So I think it's and the buildings, therefore, they occupy also have to be a reflection of their values. So I do think that responsible developers are absolutely on that sort of that message.
All the value is driven by the occupier, and that occupier is the individual. So if the individual places value on social well-being or diversity or whatever, that value gets pushed up to the person who's choosing what space they're going to work in. It gets pushed up into the rents, and it gets pushed up through. If you don't have a building that will work in that sense, you won't get the best values. And so now that the individuals are pushing those values up the chain and making their voices heard, it's coming through to us, and we can go, actually, we can spend the extra money on the opening windows and the systems that help make the space more amenable and more environmentally friendly, because we know that the value comes through on the other side. It's all circular. And so it's interesting time to see how that balances through.
I think it's been incredibly quick. I know it was starting to happen before the pandemic, And maybe the pandemic has sped it up. I'm not sure, but I do think, the accelerated change in attitudes, I think, of everybody from from the grassroots individuals within organizations right through to the CEOs, right through to all their advisors. It's been a monumental shift, I think, and it's been a positive one. It hasn't taken. I thought it was going to actually take legislation to make changes of the kind of significance that have happened over the last few years really happened. But I think it's actually been almost the grassroots up
Yeah,
that's happened and made it happen.
exactly.
Let's talk a little bit about mentoring. I think you're a big fan of mentoring. Both yourself you've been mentored or you are being mentored, but you also are a mentor for others.
I came into architecture with not a full understanding of what it actually was, because I didn't actually know that many architects. And when I moved to the UK, I grew up in the US and Trinidad. And so when I moved to the UK, I didn't really have a network to rely on. So I looked externally for people to help fill in the knowledge gaps. People have gone and done those things before. They've learned those lessons. And it's like, wait, hold on. I don't have to go through that struggle or that angst, because you can just tell me and you can rain down all this knowledge. Why wouldn't I do that?
Yeah.
And so I sought out people I had a mentor who was just really good at placing, she was a project manager. She was really good at placing herself in a room and taking control of environments. I started a meeting. I just literally asked, like, I noticed this thing. I think it's fantastic. How do you do that? And she would sit me down and talk about how when you enter a room, like what chair you should sit in based on what you're trying to say in that meeting, what you have to say and your knowledge base. And it's like, various people have various skill sets, and I want to try to learn from them. And everybody's more than happy to share, because everybody loves to talk about those type of things. So why not? And then in terms of passing it down, and then when you can open the door for someone and help them to grow, selfishly, it's a lovely feeling. You get to say, like, I had an impact in that person's life, if only minimal. And so it's a nice circular effect, because somebody gives you advice, then you make it your own, and then you pass it down to someone else. And I think and if you make that circle and that loop go through, that passing it on, it just makes the world a better place. And at the same time, you're doing well for yourself as well. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, brilliant. And is there any particular, significant piece of advice you've been given that it stands out as that's the gem of a piece of advice from my life and career or whatever?
Yeah. The head of Brockton Capital, he was like giving a speech. He wasn't talking to me directly, but it was to a group of students. And he mentioned that the best real estate professionals are the balance of wingtips and work boots. And he was saying, essentially, you should be able to walk into the bank and understand the financial constraints of your building, and then go to the site and understand the bentonite paste that's being put on top of your pile cap, and move both ways, and that way you actually understand the full context of your building. Because when you have the pull of both, you can understand, oh, my finance is affecting that piece of concrete in this way, and you can move both ways, and you can make full rounded decisions. And if you take that outside of this, he was talking to surveyors, but if you take that in the wider context of architects, planners, and everybody else, if you work in a silo, you're not going to think of the full potential of the building. And if teams are aligned and understand the goal, not just you're working to stage 4 to get your stage 4 sign off, but this building needs to go to this because our financing comes in here and our tenant comes in there, and we're looking to do this whole thing. If you understand that, you can deliver something that's more realistic, more achievable, and you can just do more. And I think the best buildings come from close-knit teams that understand the ultimate objective, and everybody's aligned. Because if you have alignment objectives with anything, relationships, work, everything, it always just helps move just smoother.
Brilliant. Really good. That's a great example. What about advice you may have given other people?
I mean, the key one. So I had 2 students in who just finished up their internships last week, and the 2 things that stood out to me were, one, if you join a company, as soon as and it was told to me, somebody's passing it down, as soon as your learning curve flattens out, you either need to get a new role in that company or find a new place to be, because you're suddenly not going to be, you're no good to the company and you're no good to yourself. Because when you stop learning, you stop challenging yourself, and then you become stagnant. But then on the wider front, it's about critical analysis. It's about taking things, and somebody gives you a number. What does that mean? Like, how is that reflecting against our objective? It's taking that next level of why and how, and it's asking questions, because with all that together, you can ask a lot of jobs are about asking the right questions and then applying that answer to what you're doing. And I think if you take the answer of I was asked to do this room and I was asked to make this room X square feet, that's one thing, but why have I been asked to do that? Because have you thought about this, this, and this? And if you have that critical analysis to understand the full, just ask questions. And if you have a client that doesn't want you to ask questions, I think that's a real shame, because I want my team to challenge me, because I don't give draw me this room. I say, we're trying to achieve this thing. We're trying to achieve this feel, this. How do you think we do this? I think we can do it like this room, but I'm open to every other possibility, because I don't want to limit down your design potential or any other creative solution. And so, yes, I would think critical analysis and learning curves are big ones for me.
Yeah, brilliant. And I like that a lot. I mean, it reminds me of when first job I ever had, I think, on my year out in architecture school, and my boss said to me, always challenge every solution from the past. It means don't just assume that's the way things are done is the right way.
Exactly.
You know, think, and continuously learn, continuously challenge yourself, challenge everything around you. Otherwise, things just become stagnant. So it's a great little one-liner that I think has helped me in my sort of career, and I've passed that down to others as well, just as a little statement of, you know, always challenge every solution from the past.
Yeah, and yourself. You come up with the answer.
Yeah.
Like, actually, is that answer that was good enough for the last project? Is that still relevant for this one? And a lot of the times the answer is no, because the context has changed.
Yeah.
And so you should, and even if it's just a slight tweak, you're going towards greatness. It's like, who's here to accept mediocrity? It's not, why? There's no need to. We have such potential. Realize it.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. No, it's
nothing that I have yet. I'm still working on mine, but yeah.
Okay.
So,
so I guess one of the kind of the last things I thought might be worth us having a little chat about is, I call it kind of purpose, but maybe it's legacy. I think all of us should be in this world to do something, to leave something behind, or do some good for some reason. And I guess it's, you know, if you really look at yourself and look at what you're doing, either in your life or your career, you know, the question would be, you know, what would you like to be known for? What would you like to actually leave behind and be known for?
I mean, it's ambitious, but it's people and places. So like I have a combination of skill sets and things that I enjoy that go towards getting groups together to do good things, whether that's sports, whether that's mentorship, whether that's building buildings. And it happens that I love spaces. And so I would love to have somebody walk into a space and go, this is an amazing space, something that makes me feel something, and go, oh, I think Yohance worked on that. Or to be fair, if they don't even have to remember my name. All they have to do is feel something in that space.
Yeah.
And that's good enough for me.
Yeah.
And if that feeling is positive, great. And if it's negative, I hope it's not. But I just want people to feel things when they walk into a space and feel comfortable and feel, just that the space was considered for them.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm really aiming to achieve. That's what we're aiming to achieve here at Quadrant. And I think that's my purpose here.
I think that's a very beautiful way to say it. And I think other people in the world of property and design, you know, could certainly pick up on that same sort of message. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's leave behind in a built environment that makes people feel good.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know, at MCM, we kind of defined our purpose as designing a future that people love.
So it aligns.
As simple as that. You know, just because somebody said, you know, you're trying to like, what's our purpose? And you go, well, I think I said, you know, my wife asked me, said, what if you had to say it? And I said, well, I just want to create places that people love.
Yeah.
Kind of slightly tweaked it to go, you know, designing a future that people love, because it's not always about the place, it's kind of about the experience. It can be other things as well. In terms of our business, we can influence some of those. But yeah, so doing things for the built environment that people love and make them happy.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. That's brilliant.
Wow. Yohance, anything else that any words of wisdom to leave with the next gen before we go?
No, I mean, I guess the main thing is just being outgoing, and I know that it's a privilege to have a personality that's continually seeking to meet and mingle with other people, but your peers and this conversation, they all add up to things that help you grow. And I would say anything that helps you to do that, organizations like the BCO, the ULI, RICS, all of those, and even giving back knowledge, when you have knowledge, passing it on, I think it all reinforces a mutual gain, in the sense that when you connect with people, you grow. And I think that growth, you can't measure it, and you can't buy it. And so if I had to say anything, last points is just go out there and just have a chat, and just make sure that you're constantly engaging with your peers and the industry, because just the good things come of it, and you grow as a person.
Brilliant. Well said.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Delighted to have a chat with you today. And
Thanks, guys. My pleasure.
I hope the listeners have enjoyed it as well. But thanks very much, Yohance. All the best.
Thank you.
Take
No,
care.
hope to keep in contact. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.